Okay, right, guys. Thank you so much for coming on board and being part of this presentation, webinar, chat, fireside conversation, however you want to talk about it. So this is the culmination of something like 15 years worth of conversations between Steve, Neil, and myself, where Steve has been saying for a while that there's a lot of questions that are asked by players that play on the British Junior Golf Tour. And what we're wanting to do is to put together a series of answers for you guys. And this is the first answer that we're giving you. And this one is really all around if you're aspiring to be a tournament professional, if that's what your goal is, then you need to understand where your journey starts, which is where you are now, and then what it looks like to be a tournament professional, and then how you get from where you are to where you need to be. And I've been in this industry and this business for quite a while now. I mean, if I told you that I got to a scratch handicap when I was 15, and that was 36 years ago, then that'll give you an idea of how long and how passionate I am about the game. And yet, when I first said to my mum and dad, I want to be a tournament professional, I still remember the look they gave me, which was kind of along the lines of, oh, that's great, that's great. And I kind of knew that they were stalling for time when I said that, because there was really no idea what that meant or how they were going to get me from where I was to where I needed to be. And since I said that to my mum and dad, there still hasn't, up until this time, been a central information centre where you can get all this relevant detail, you know, the roadmap to being a tournament professional. So what we've wanted to do is to give you that idea. Today is really that roadmap, and it's at a kind of a high level. But what I want to make sure that you understand is that this isn't to dissuade you from being a tournament professional. Far from it. This is actually to excite you, because if you start dreaming big and start understanding the size of your dream, then it should increase the level of work that you're willing to put in. Because if you're saying that you want to be a tournament professional, then what you're actually saying is that you want to be one of the top 150 players in Europe, if you're going to be a tournament professional in Europe on the European Tour, or on the Ladies European Tour. Now, and that's not the top 150 players in Europe at age 10, at age 20 or 30 or 40. That's top golfer, top 150 players in Europe from age 20 to, well, I think Miguel Angel Jimenez must be about 51, 52 now. So you're looking to take on these guys. And what I want you to be able to understand by the close of play today is that you need to stay in education. And if you're going to drop out of education, the only acceptable way to do it is to make sure that you've got a contract. And the European Tour will only give you a contract for 1 year if you win your tour card. And the only other contract that you are able to get will be with a management company. And the management company will invest in you and look after you whilst you're valuable, whilst you're playing really good golf and attracting media attention, and also walking the fairways with plenty of television cameras on you. So be aware of that, because if you're thinking about dropping out of school and you don't have a management contract with you, then you really are walking a very, very tight line. And now I've explained to Steve and Neil a little bit about this, but there's only 3 types of players in the game. And you're going to know how good you are by where you are under these 3 categories. So the three types of players in the game are: one, the player that has to pay for his equipment. Okay. Two, the second type of player is the player that gets given their equipment. And the third type of player is the player that gets paid to play with their equipment. And when you're saying that you want to be a tournament professional, you want to be in that third group. That's where the money is. That's where you can sustain your lifestyle, have a family, have a mortgage, have everything that you might think is pretty boring right now, but will become important to you when you get to about 25. But this is really giving you a heads up on what you need to be doing. So with that in mind, I now need to really give you a bit of a background on myself. As I've just said, I'm about 36 years of playing tournament golf. I was the England under-15 champion. Please excuse my dog. I'm not in a studio. I am in a normal house. It's in Portugal, but one of my dogs is barking back in the next room. And I won the England under-15s championship at age 13. So people thought, oh, he's won that a year early. So that's kind of cool. Then I went on to win the Midlands under-15s. Then I went on to win a couple of county championships at Warwickshire, and I was still in education against I didn't really want to be in education at that stage when I was 16, 17, and 18, but parents told me I had to be. Then I went to the States on a golf scholarship. Really enjoyed that and was thankful that I'd got A-levels because that allowed me to go to the States on a golf scholarship. And I played #1 for the University of Tennessee in Chattanooga from the day I arrived till the day I left 4 years later. And in that time, I managed to become all-region and all-American. And because of the efforts and the playing career that I had in the States, the University of Tennessee Chattanooga inducted me into their Athletics Hall of Fame in 2013. You can probably tell when I left the States, I turned professional. I went through the grueling area of tour school, which I'm going to be talking to you about in a second. I was in a 10-man playoff for 2 spots for the final stage of tour school, and I made a birdie on the first hole, so thank goodness. My caddy was shaking on that first hole of the playoff when he gave me the ball on the green. Then I didn't have enough money behind me to make it on the tour, so I got my Challenge Tour card, but could only play maybe 5 or 6 events. So I lost my Challenge Tour card, did my PGA training, won the Midland PGA Order of Merit in 1998, which allowed me to play in the PGA Championship at Wentworth. And then that was pretty much my swan song. That was the end of my tournament playing career at age 30. And ever since then, I've been trying to get a message to junior players about what they need to do to get to have in place so that they can make the journey that I've just made a little bit more enjoyable and a little bit more secure. So I've started up a college called Edge Golf College that you'll probably be seeing quite a bit about in the news in the next few weeks. And it's Europe's only centre of excellence for golf education and performance. So if you want to ask any questions about Edge, please do after this. Oh, and if you want to ask any questions about this presentation, there's going to be time for questions at the end. I have been an England manager, an England regional manager. So I've been in charge of the East Midlands England region and looking after the talent there under 18 and developing them to hopefully get into the England elite squads or England A squads. I'm now a golf coach based in the Algarve and also head of education for Edge Golf College. So I've kind of got a fairly interesting blend of background where I've been amateur, I've been professional, I've been tour pro, I'm coach, been PGA, and I've been in England. So I can pretty much answer most questions that you would ask me. And if I don't know the answer, I know I can ask somebody very close to me and we'll get an answer to you very quickly. So back to tonight. You want to be a tournament professional. Now, what I'm going to be telling you right now isn't to scare you. It's really to give you that very, very clear direction that you need to be on. So if you say that you're going to be a tournament professional, be specific. What kind of tournament professional are you going to be? Are you going to be a tournament professional that potentially no one's heard of? Or are you going to be a tournament professional that people really do know? Or are you going to be a tournament professional that everybody knows you by your first name? So like Rory, Rahm, Phil, Scott, well, Adam Scott, but I know that's his last name. You know what I mean? So you've got to be, if you're going to aspire to be anything, aspire to be a player that is going to win majors and is going to play either President's Cup or Ryder Cup at some stage, because then you're going to be, your work ethic that's going to be behind you is going to be stunning, because that's going to drive you to where you need to be. If you don't, if you understand that the only place that you can make money in golf is on the European Tour or on the Ladies European Tour, that will hold you in really, really good stead, because trust me, the Jamega Tour, the Clutch Pro Tour, the Euro Pro Tour, God, goodness knows, there's so many out there right now. You're just basically playing for your own money. You pay something like £500 to be to play in the event, or 400, and then you pay for the prize money, which comes from the entry fees. So European Tour or bust. Either that's Ladies European Tour or Men's European Tour. But what we really want you to understand is that there's going to be some tournaments that you need to play in, but the characteristics that you need to show as a player, as a junior player going to graduate through the game, is one, you've got to love golf. You've got to have a passion for it. Two, you've got to just think that practice is a dream. You know, every minute of practice is something that you really, really are lucky to have. Hard work ethic. You've got to have a work ethic like a Titan. You've got to, more minutes and seconds you can cram in, the better to the work you're doing. When it comes to competition, you've got to thrive in it. Because if you don't thrive in the competition, you're not going to get the performance that you require. And then when it comes to pressure, you've got to eat it up. Because if you don't eat up pressure, then you can't stand on the first tee in the Ryder Cup and give it one of these, and then actually hit the shot whilst the players, whilst the guys are doing the clap on you. So you've got to love that environment, and that's what sits underneath all of your success. The more you practice, the more you perform, and the less likely you're going to feel pressure. So practice is everything. So if you just give me 1 second, I'm just going to have a quick slurp of water. I'm going to talk to you about the yardsticks, the milestones, and everything that you need to play. So these are the events that where you might be very, very good at your in your club. You could be brilliant, and that's fabulous. Well done. You're a successful player within your own golf club. What you need to be, though, is if you're going to be one of these top 150 players in Europe, you're going to have to be a player that is more of a national player or a European player than just a club, county, region player. So you're going to have to excel at that level to start showing that the next stage is possible. And the next stage is, if you're good at country, are you good in Europe? If you're good in Europe, are you good in the world? If you're an amateur, if you're good in the world as an amateur, can you actually make it onto the tour? So that's kind of the progression that we need to be thinking of. So the big tournaments you need to be playing in as a junior, just so you've got your schedule and understanding right. First of all, the British Junior Golf Tour Summer Cup, big event for the British Junior Golf Tour, World Amateur Golf Ranking points for you. And that's really important, because that's how you gauge where you are in the world, obviously. Then at under 14, the Reed Cup. Now, I just need to apologise for brevity. I've gone on the boys' side as far as the tournaments are concerned, but as far as the girls are concerned, the tournaments are easily found on England Golf. Okay, so they've got the age group events available to you. I'm just keeping this kind of as tight and as short as possible for you. So McGregor is the under-16 national event. Then you've got Fairhaven Trophy, which is a big under-16 event. McAvoy Trophy is a pretty big, one of the big sort of blue ribbon events for under-18 junior golf. The Carriage Trophy is the England Boys Open Amateur Championship. So everybody in Europe can play in it. Then you've got the Boys Amateur Championship, where people from all over the world come and play. And that's run by the R&A. Then you've got, those are the junior events. Then you've got the over 18 events, and the flagship events for over 18, which all of the, I'm going to talk a little bit about management companies in a bit, but the management companies will be looking to see how well you're doing in these events. So the over 18 events, the flagship events are the Amateur Championship, the US Amateur Championship, the Brabazon. Now the Brabazon is the England Seniors Open Amateur Championship. Okay, so it's called the Brabazon or the Brab. Then you've got the Lytham Trophy, and then you've also got the National Amateur Senior title. So, for example, the English Amateur, the Scottish Amateur, the Welsh Amateur, the French Amateur. All of these are big, big events, and people will be watching to see how you're doing, especially your national coaches and your national selectors. So if you're doing well in those events, then people are watching and going, look at this guy's playing well. We'd like to look at this guy. And then you'll be invited to play in a national squad. And you might just walk straight into the national squad or be asked to trial for it. But you'll start to get invites if you're playing well in those tournaments. Then there's a hierarchy of national representation. So if you're in Great Britain and Ireland and you're becoming a superstar within your country, you've then got an opportunity or a chance to be selected for Walker Cup or Curtis Cup, which is when, for Great Britain and Ireland, the top 12 players in that country will be selected to play against the US. And that's a big deal. And there's going to be a pretty cool photograph coming up in a second, which we're going to show you. And then the pinnacle of amateur representation within your country is called the World Amateur Team Championships. Its abbreviated name is called the Eisenhower Trophy. And this is where you're selected by your country as one of the top 3 players in the country. It doesn't matter whether or not you're 15 years age or 35, 40. You're in the top 3, and you then go and play against the best in the world at that level. Okay, so that's national team, Walker Cup, Eisenhower, and that's where the management companies are looking. So now I'm going to start talking to you about the 2 routes. The reason why the management companies are important is because there's 2 routes onto the European tour. One is by the management company, and the management company, of which there's 4 major ones. So you might want to take a note of these guys. First one is IMG, International Management Group, which was founded by Mark McCormack and is generally regarded as one of the strongest, if not the strongest, management company in the world. Second is within golf, it's called ISN, International Sports Management, and that's run by Chubby Chandler. Then you've got Wasserman, which globally is an enormous management company, and then you've got Stella Hambrecht. Okay. Now, if those guys are talking to you right now, I'm brilliant. If they're not, then those are the events that I've just talked about where you need to start playing well in, because they'll be noticing that it's their job to watch out for the next wave of talent coming through. So why go to a management company? Well, the management company will organize your flights, will organize your diary, will be able to leverage its position with the tours. So we'll be able to get you tour starts with the main, most important point of it, that the player is getting to play in the events, earn money, and hopefully within the events that they're playing, they're able to win enough money to finish in the top 115 of the order of merit. So then they've got their tour card for the next year. It's the quickest and easiest way for a tour player, for an amateur, to become a tournament professional and avoid tour school, because we're going to talk about tour school in a bit. Now, that's why management companies are around. They're looking for the next wave of talent, and they want the next wave of talent to be on their books. Because if I told you this, well, I found out this afternoon that a major sports manufacturer is paying their European tour players, not their big players, but their European tour players, £100,000 a year just for them to wear the clothes. So that's worthwhile, and that's what they bring. But they're making 20% of that 100,000. So that's why they're in it. And if they've got 10 players all earning that, you can see how the money stacks up. So I'm now going to show you the guys that have made money, that have made a success going through the management group. And these are probably the guys that you'll definitely recognize them. But I just want them to be somebody that I want you to see it and go, oh, right, that's why I look up to these guys. That's the reason why he's in the world top 10. But what's important for you to understand too is that they started where you are. They just worked really hard and were really dedicated and had a dream and a passion to take them where they needed to go. So if you give me 1 second, I'm going to share this screen and I'm going to show you the guys that you'll recognize, and then I'm going to talk to you about some guys that you won't recognize that were on the management trip but didn't make it. Okay, so here we go. So you should see Jon Rahm. Do you see Jon Rahm and Rory McIlroy there? If you nod, that'd be great. Thank you, guys. So Rory. Now, if you just take a second to look at what Rory looks like right now compared to what Rory looked like when he was playing Walker Cup, you can get an idea of how much work he's put into his game and into his body and into his physique that since he was 17, okay? Because what you're looking at right now is basically a honed tour pro whose work ethic is still stunning. And the same with Jon Rahm. Jon Rahm has gone from wearing shorts and looking, he's always been big across the shoulders, but he's an absolute monster now if you ever get close up to him. And if you look at Rory's background here, the management company is really interested to see whether or not the player can graduate easily from amateur to professional. And at age 17 in 2006, Rory won the European Men's Championship at age 17. So he took on the best there was in Europe and beat them. And because of that, he was eligible. One of the perks of winning that event is that you can play in the Open Championship. So same year, 2006, he represents Ireland in the Eisenhower Trophy. So he's shown himself to be one of the top 3 players in the game in Ireland. The next year, he goes to Carnoustie to play the Open Championship. And the staggering thing is, first round, playing in the Open Championship, if you can imagine what that must feel like, he goes out off the back tees and shoots 3 under without a bogey. Makes the cut. Everybody as far as the management companies were concerned were going, all right, this guy's not going to have a problem. He's got what it takes to tee it up against the best. He then plays Walker Cup against, I don't know whether, do you recognize who he's playing with? Can you see? It's a young Ricky Fowler. Okay, so you can see that they're going through the same trajectory as far as their careers are concerned. He turns pro off +6. Then the next year he climbs the world golf rankings, and by the end of 2008 he's ranked 38th in the world. And at the end of 2008, 38th in the world. One of the first tournaments he plays in 2009 is the Dubai Desert Classic, and he wins it at age 19. And from that moment on, we knew about Rory. Rory became then the most exciting player in the game. 2 years later, Nike signed him next to Tiger, and that's who he's been wearing ever since. Jon Rahm, however, went a slightly different route. Now, bearing in mind, Rory turned pro without an education, or without continuing onto A-levels and onto a degree. Jon Rahm, however, he got A-levels or his equivalent, and he went to Arizona State University. At age 19, whilst at Arizona State University, he wins the Eisenhower Trophy. He beats the best of the best in the world as far as amateurs are concerned. He still stays in college, and because he's at Arizona State University and they always get starts in the Waste Management Phoenix Open, he finishes tied 5th in that championship. And also, as part of his career as an amateur at the University of Arizona State University, he holds the world #1 spot for 60 weeks. Now, that still stands as the record. No one's beaten that. So that's these two. Now we go to something a little bit more relevant, or a little bit more recent. You've got Viktor Hovland. Viktor, at age 17 in 2014, wins the Norwegian Amateur National Championship. Then at age 21, he wins one of the flagship amateur events in the world, and that being the US Amateur Championship. As a result of him winning the US Amateur Championship, he then gets a start the same way if you win the European Men's Championship and get started in the Open Championship. If you win the US Masters as an amateur and finishes tied 32nd as an amateur. So again, wow. Then he backs that up by going and playing in the US Amateur the same year as an amateur and finishes 12th, beating Jack Nicklaus's record of low score as an amateur that stood for 58 years. So you can see how he's not found it difficult to get onto the tour from then on. Now, and then you've got Charlie Hull, who's very special in our minds and our hearts as far as Steve and I are concerned, because she started playing golf in Northamptonshire. She was playing off scratch at age 11. She played Curtis Cup at age 15 and was ranked at age 15 in the top 3 in the world, and played Solheim Cup at age 17. So you can see that she didn't find it particularly difficult to graduate up. Now, those are the success stories. Now, brace yourselves and belt your buckles up, because we're going to talk about the guys that went management routes that you've not heard of. And that's these guys. So Michael Welsh, in 1990, at age 16, in one season, won his county junior championship, which was Shropshire and Herefordshire, his regional junior championship, which was the Midlands Championship. He won the Carriage Trophy, the British Boys, the European Boys, and the World Boys, all in 1 year, all in one season. And that's Michael on the left-hand side there with the trophies. And for some reason, he got all of those events absolutely nailed, and he was a hell of a golfer. But he didn't make it on the tour. And he had bad news, he had bad luck happen to him quite a bit along the way. I think he had a wrist injury just as he was turning professional, which didn't help. He then he didn't get his tour card, so he had to go through tour school and made it onto the Challenge Tour, but didn't make it onto the tour. He actually managed to qualify for the Open Championship in 1995, qualified for it, finished 18th. And you're thinking, wow, 18th. And back then, 18th got you into the next year's Open. So we thought, at least I've got another Open Championship that I can play in, and I can get sponsors and we can start hustling. And the R&A changed the entry requirements and conditions for the following Open and dropped it from 20 to 15, which meant that Michael couldn't play. He's a hell of a coach now. He's a lovely guy, but that's the record that he had before he turned pro, and you've not heard of him. Then you've got another friend of mine, a guy called Gordon Sherry, who's Scottish, and comes from Stirling. No, sorry, comes from went to Stirling University, lives in Kilmarnock. He was world amateur #1. After 5 years of playing golf, he became runner-up in the amateur championship. Went home, licked his wounds, reapplied himself, and came back the next year and won the amateur championship, which got him exemption into the Scottish Open and the Open Championship. The next year, with those exemptions, he finishes 4th in the tournament. Radar Riley, Wayne Radar Riley, the commentator, won it that year, and Montgomery and Faldo finished 2nd and 3rd. So pretty stout competition, but that's what he did. Then he travels down from Carnoustie to the Open Championship, which is in at St Andrews. Shoots some great scores, was in contention, then was top 10, but ended up tied 29th. Takes £1 off Tiger Woods because they had a side bet. Because he beat Tiger as far as to the amateur spot. Then played Walker Cup that autumn, in the winning Walker Cup, which Tiger played in. Then turned professional. Mono, he suffered from mono, or he contracted mono within about 2-3 months of turning professional. He's 6'8", and he lost 4 stone as a result of it. Never got his golf swing back again. So that's kind of the story that sits behind management companies. Just because you get picked by a management company doesn't give you a guarantee. There's no guarantees, but you at least you've got a shot, and they're behind you. Okay. So now I'm just going to change the screen. Okay. So now, if you nowadays though, you're probably wondering who are the players right now that are on that trajectory. And you've probably heard of them, but you're probably not really appreciating what they're doing. So there's 2 players, 2 British players, one called Ben Schmidt and the other's called Connor Goff. Both the same age. Ben Schmidt won before the first tournament he won in 2019 that was a major was the Brabazon. And then he went on to win the Carrish Trophy in a playoff the same season in 2019. In 2018, as a 15-year-old, Connor Goff won the British Boys, or the Boys Amateur Championship. And then the following year, as a 16-year-old, he wins the English Amateur Championship. So those are the guys that the management companies are really looking out for, or there are 2 of them right now. And you can see that players at a young age are still performing much older than their age. So it's happening around you. So don't think that the people that I've just put out there are the exception to the rule. Every year this is happening. So, but if you don't perform at that very high level, you're going to have to go to tour school. And tour school is not pretty, it's not nice, and it certainly isn't friendly. Because what you have is, as a European tour player, if you finish outside of the top 115, you lose your card. Because you only have a 1-year contract. So if you finish 116th on the order of merit, you're going to tour school. And you're going to be going to tour school at the last stage. If as a challenge tour player, you don't graduate onto the European tour because of finishing in the top 20 in the order of merit, then you're going to be going to tour school, but more than likely you're going to be joining them at the second stage. The first stage is reserved specifically for the newbies, the fresh on the block, the guys that are that don't have a management company that can get them into the major events. You just start off at ground zero, you pay your £1,000 or so, you roll the dice and you see how good you are. And you can graduate, the top 30 in each stage graduate to the next stage, okay? And now, there's more than 1,000 competitors at that level, and there are only 25 tour cards on offer. And on average, over the last few years, on average, 2 players make it from the first stage to getting a tour card. So if you're starting at ground zero as an amateur golfer, you have a 2 in 1,000 chance, or a 1 in 500 chance of getting your tour card. Otherwise, you're going to be, if you make it to the final stage and don't get your tour card, you're going to be on the Challenge Tour. But then what happens after that is if you don't get a progression onto the Challenge Tour, or a category onto the Challenge Tour, or a category onto the European Tour, what's going to happen is, well, you're going to be left high and dry come Christmas in the year that you try, okay? So that means you now have got a taste for it, you've worked really hard, but you've not got anywhere to play. Nothing to fall back on, nothing at all out there. And it's the bleakest winter ever. So when you then get through Christmas and get through New Year, you're getting closer to tour school again, but you've got to live. But if you are going to live, you can't go and get a job, because if you're getting a job, your time isn't dedicated to your passion, your art of playing at the very highest level. So you need finance behind you. And unfortunately, well, you may be lucky enough to have some sponsors behind you that you've managed to muster up yourself, but generally the bank of mum and dad picks up this expense. And it's not cheap. So the reason why, that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk to you today, is this is the progression that you're going to go through. Because you're then going to say, right, I've got to stay competitive, I've got to have something to play in. And that's where the other tours live. That's where Euro Pro Tour lives, that's where the Clutch Tour lives, Jamega, there's the 1836, I mean the Players Tour, there's so many. But as I said earlier, you are paying for your own money in these events. Okay, so, and don't think you can make a living there, because I'll give you an example. The 2019 Order of Merit winner for the Euro Pro Tour, he won £37,000. Now, don't get me wrong, £37,000 is a lot of money, but that's before expenses and tax. So I know some of the juniors looking at me, expenses, what are they? I mean, I don't know what those are. But unfortunately, expenses are what comes out of your pocket to go and play the event. So it generally costs about £500 an event, entry fee plus gas, and there we go, that's my US thing, plus gas money, petrol, hotel, food, everything, caddy, everything in there that costs money comes out of those winnings. So at £500 per event, and the Order of Merit winner that year played in 15 events. So take £7,500 off that. So you're now down to 29,500. Now you're paying tax, and also you're paying other things other than your tournament entries. Okay? So that's what you win on the MasterCard Tour. Sorry, the Euro Pro Tour. It was the MasterCard Tour back in my time. So that gives you an idea of perspective. So you've got European Tour, Challenge Tour, other tours. Now, how's your progress looking? Because all of that information that we've just given you is worth nothing if you can't actually make it relevant to what you're doing right now. So how is your progress looking? So I'll tell you generally the rule of thumb about how progress should look if you're going to be on this trajectory. It's a race to getting to scratch. If you can get to scratch before you're 16, you're in a good spot. Now, some of you guys are probably looking at that going, well, hold on a sec, I only took the game up when I was 14, that's a bit tough. But if you take the game up, let's say at age 14, you've got to give yourself maybe 3.5, 4 years to get to scratch. If it's taking you longer, something's not working. You either are not playing in the right events, you don't have the right team about you, or you're just not applying yourself. I'm sorry, that's kind of the honesty coming out there. But what you've got to do is you've got to play off that scratch handicap around the country. Being a +2 handicap player at your home golf club, brilliant. You're playing some great golf. You're going to have some people looking at you thinking you're fabulous. But unless the European Tour starts putting its schedule around your home golf course, you're going to find you're going to have to take your game elsewhere. And it better be playing well in different countries and different courses. So you've got to be able to take it away. And then once you've got your handicap down far enough, you'll then be eligible for the tournaments at junior level that we were talking about. And if you've got it even lower, so if you're playing off plus figures by the time you're 16, then you can start entering the major amateur events at over 18, which gives you great experience. And then what you have to do at this stage is you have to compete in these events. Just playing isn't enough. You've got to turn up and compete. You've got to finish within reach of the winning distance, or the winner's line. You can't just be there making up the numbers. So with all of that information there, 2 scenarios occurred in the last couple of weeks. And I want you to sort of, now you've got this information, I hope that you'll see why I struggle sometimes to see some sense in what people are doing, the decisions people are making. So these 2 scenarios are, on Tuesday, I was chatting with a guy that was thinking about coming to Edge Golf College. And he plays off +2, and he's a 22-year-old. He's got A-levels, but he's dropped out of school after A-levels, and he's been playing full-time golf for the last 4 years. And playing off +2, he's decided not to come to college. He's going to really go for it now as a tournament professional. And he's got a bit of an axe to grind as far as the World Amateur Golf Rankings are concerned, because he thinks that the World Amateur Golf Rankings are against him. And that's because his handicap isn't low enough and the World Amateur Golf Ranking position isn't high enough for him even to get in the Brabazon Championship. So he can't even play in the event, but he's still going full bore for playing tournament professional golf. That's one side. Then another scenario is I had a conversation a week or so ago around a 13-year-old lad, very, very promising player, who's playing off scratch. And he's telling me, or his parents are telling me, that they're going to take him out of education at age 16 because they believe he's going to be the next Tiger Woods or the next Jon Rahm. And my honest answer was, well, and you can probably guess, well, I hope your management company have got you a fabulous deal, because I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the TV. And the answer came out, what, management company? So if you can understand that, then if I've got one person on this call to actually think, you know what, education might be an option here, or might be the smart move, then this has been an enormous success, and I'm delighted to have been here. If I've given you all the reality, a reality check and an understanding of what it is by saying I want to be a tournament professional and what it's going to take, It's not to dissuade you, it's more to re-engage you and make sure that you really are diving down that road in the right direction with the right equipment next to you, the right information. So what we've done this evening here is I've covered the what needs to be done and kind of where it needs to be done. What Steve and Neil and I have been able to do, Neil being Neil, I'm sorry Neil, I've forgotten your last name, Neil Randall. We've done is, if you found this interesting, we've got a whole list of seminars that will support this, which will talk about the how to do it. So everything from your education options to tournament performance, to performance psychology, to how you organize your game, to, well, anything that you want will be covered. There's about 30 different topics that we're going to go through. And if you found it useful and you as a player and as a parent want to play at the highest level, you're going to have to make some very, very expensive decisions in the next few years. And I know that personally and financially, they're going to cost thousands. I know that if you give me a chance, or give Neil and Steve and I a chance to put that information in front of you through the seminars, we'll save you thousands, because we'll point you in the right direction and make sure that you're getting the right information at any time, okay? So I'm going to leave it to the British Junior Golf Tour to contact you about these other seminars and other things. But now, well, we're open to questions.